Welcome, everybody. Mary Kay and I would like to welcome you to Providers Day. We are so glad that you're here. Providers don't have a lot of opportunity to gather and share the very unique experience of providing services to a child or an adult with PWS. So please take this day to learn, to share, to commiserate, to laugh with people who truly understand your job. We would like to thank the members of the Providers Board, Marguerite, Mark, BJ. Thank you to Stacy for all of your support. Thank you to Brittany and Katrina and Jeff, who are providing technical and group leadership roles today. We have a few things of housekeeping. This is our first time doing this virtual, and I know this is new to a lot of people. So if you go to the top right of your screen, you will see a little word that says view. If you want to see just the person talking, you want it on speaker view. If you want to see everybody at once, you want it on gallery view. So you can take a moment to play with that. We have everybody on mute. If you have anything to say, if you have a question, you can either write it in the chat, you can raise your hand electronically, which you'll find at the top right corner of your little box that you're in, or you can just raise your hand the old-fashioned way. If you need anything throughout the day today, you can chat to me, to Brittany, or to Katrina. Those are the three people that you can chat to say something's wrong, I can't hear you, anything. You chat that to us. We have a little bit of a change in the schedule. We are actually ending today at 6. So in the agenda, you'll see that we're going till 7. That is not correct. We are going to be doing group sessions, roundtables, which we hope that you'll join us for, from 4:30 to a few minutes before 6, and then we're going to do some closing remarks, and we'll be done at 6. So that's just a little bit of a change to the schedule. So today we are very, very happy to have Lisa Graziano here as our keynote speaker. Lisa has spoken for us a number of times, and it is always a wonderful experience. Lisa has been actively involved with local, state, and national issues that impact persons with PWS since the birth of her son, Cameron, 20 years ago. She presents on a variety of aspects of PWS at conferences throughout the country, including behavior management, marital and family issues, and stress management, which has been my all-time favorite presentation of any presentation we've had at Providers Day. She provides training in the home for families and residential programs, work settings, and school settings. Lisa is a former PWSA USA board member and Prader-Willi California Foundation's prior executive director, and we are so glad that you're here with us today, Lisa. So I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. When we think of Prader-Willi syndrome, we immediately think of the hyperphagia drive to eat symptom. But as professional providers, you know that maladaptive behaviors pose as great, if not even greater challenges than hyperphagia. Today, you will learn 10 techniques and strategies that will help you reduce unwanted behaviors and improve the quality of your interactions with the individuals with PWS you support, making the quality of their lives and yours significantly better. Let's get started. All right, can you all see my slide?
Yep.
Can you all see this? Okay, awesome. It's important to understand that what we see, the behavior that we see, is significantly influenced by what's going on underneath. And that the more we're aware of what might be going on underneath and how individuals with PWS typically think, the greater success we'll have to avoid unwanted behaviors. And anxiety is always lurking as part of what's influencing those maladaptive behaviors. So PWS significantly influences, the anxiety of PWS significantly influences maladaptive behavior. Anxiety is that excessive fear, worry, unrealistic view of problems, and feeling out of control. Almost everyone with PWS has a high level of anxiety that lurks just below the surface, ready to react to the next real or even perceived stressor. Anxiety can be the cause of maladaptive behaviors that look like arguing and defiance, verbal and physical aggression, repeated questions, excessive talking, elopement, and even skin picking. So that anything or anyone that raises anxiety has the potential to cause a behavior problem, which means that you have the potential to cause a behavior problem, and you have the potential to cause a behavior problem. But when we reduce or eliminate the cause of anxiety, we reduce or eliminate the potential for maladaptive or unwanted behavior. Today, we're going to focus on 10 PWS management strategies and interventions, including PWS environmental basics, empathy as an intervention, paint the picture, fix a past goof, preferred choices, disguise those no's, allow for the possibility of rightness, use egocentrism to your advantage, motivate externally, and use transition prompts to increase flexibility. Number one intervention we're looking at: food security, routines, rules, boundaries, and calm responses from you. So, as we all know, that PWS hyperphagia is a dysfunctional appetite regulating system. It's a physiological, neurological drive to eat or obtain food that lasts throughout the lifetime. The brain functions as if the body is starving. So it drives the individual to eat or find as much food as possible. There's no brakes on that satiety. It stores consumed food as fat, and it lowers the metabolic rate to almost half in order to conserve energy. Hyperphagia underlies many unwanted behaviors because it fuels anxiety. So that unmanaged hyperphagia plus slow metabolic rate cause rapid weight gain and the potential for premature death from a stomach rupture or a bowel rupture or necrosis, potential for morbid obesity, and of course, behavior problems. No medication treats hyperphagia food drive yet. There is no genuine learning to control food intake. So current management is 24/7, 365 a year, supervision and adherence to principles of food security. You are the key to managing hyperphagia, anxiety, and maladaptive behaviors. And it's critical to remember that PWS is not an eating disorder. PWS is a medical disorder. First thing we're going to look at is an overview of food security, very brief overview of food security, which is no doubt when the next meal or snack will be served, so that consistent routines for food consumption are there, plus no hope or chance to obtain extra or unauthorized food, means there are no behavior problems, no disappointment, and no disappointment means no behavior problems. No doubt means we establish consistent routines for food consumption. We determine when food will be served every 2.5 to 3 hours, breakfast, lunch, breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, supper, etc. Scheduled food should be as reliable as breathing air. Never use food as a reward, never use food to bribe, and never withhold food for poor behavior. You can pause the food schedule, however, until a requested task is completed. For instance, after you shower, then we'll have your lunch, so that no matter how long the individual is putting off not showering, it's okay. They'll have their lunch after shower, and the food schedule and the rest of the day's schedule proceeds accordingly. You can also let the individual know it's not safe to eat while you're yelling or crying. So as soon as your body is calm, you can have your lunch, because we don't want anybody choking. No hope or chance means that access to food creates hope, hope creates anxiety, and anything that creates anxiety has the potential to create an unwanted behavior. That's really our mantra. So if food is available, the individual can do little else but think anxiously of ways to get that food. So what do? We eliminate access to food to reduce anxiety and the potential for behavior problems. We lock the refrigerator, pantry, medicine cabinet, money. No one should eat in front of the individual with the syndrome if food is not also available to them. and establish rules for the type and quantity of food before you attend any outings. If you're going to a new restaurant, go online, take a look at the menu, give the individual a couple of options to choose from before you even set foot in the car to get to the restaurant. As Drs. Forrester and Gourash say, put a lock on the thought that unauthorized food is available and never give in to a tantrum, especially for food. If unauthorized food is known or suspected, don't question the consumption. Did you eat those chips? Rather, presume that food was eaten and state it as a fact. I see those chips are gone. Take responsibility for the individual gaining access to that food. Let the individual know, I'll make sure that doesn't happen again, so you stay safe. Secure that food source, and then without the individual knowing, reduce the calories in the future meals to compensate for those additional consumed calories. Some food security insights include, bear in mind that higher cognitive and verbal skills do not mean the individual can override their brain's insatiable drive to obtain food. They can't. People with limited intellectual functioning can be brilliant at obtaining food. The ability to plan and execute very complicated arrangements to get food may not generalize to other areas of their life. And even the most honest individual with PWS may lie, cheat, or steal when it comes to food. This is simply the symptom of Prader-Willi syndrome. Behavior problems are often related to unsecured food sources somewhere. So once once all food sources are locked, anxiety is reduced and behavior problems are often reduced in all areas. And do remember that it's often about quantity for the individual. So use a smaller plate in the home, spread food out over the plate, cut food into smaller pieces, break chips up into smaller pieces in a baggie so it looks like more food. Don't remove any food or anything actually from the hands of someone with PWS unless it's dangerous or poisonous, because this will almost always create a behavior outburst. Consistency and routines help people feel safe. So our environmental basic B is to create routines to reduce anxiety, because people with syndrome have a high need for routine, predictability, consistency, and sameness in their environment. And when you create routines, you're reducing that anxiety. So create routines around bedtime, wake up time, meals and snacks, household chores, everything. Create a written schedule or a visual schedule or chart. Refer to that written schedule or chart to avoid arguments, and provide advance notice about changes in plans when appropriate to the individual. Environmental C, rules. Rules make it easier to obtain success. Knowing the rules reduces anxiety, and people with PWS are huge rule followers. So establish the rules to reduce anxiety. We're not talking about punitive rules. We're just talking about rules in general. Establish rules for chores. Make your bed in the morning, set the table for supper. Hygiene, wash your hands after the restroom. Exercise and physical activity routines and rules. Social rules, eye contact, shopping, no stealing, food rules, everything is a rule. When something is understood as a rule, it is more likely to be followed, especially if the individual had some input into creating that rule. So involve the individual to the extent you possibly can to create all the rules. Post those rules until they're visible or until they're learned or until necessary. Be sure to establish the rule that you as the provider can change the rule if necessary. Boundaries. Boundaries define limits, provide structure to relationships. Boundaries establish what behavior is and is not acceptable. Firm boundaries reduce anxiety and help people feel safe. And boundaries are critically important to persons with Prader-Willi syndrome. So create clear and firm boundaries to reduce anxiety, because when you give the boundaries, that feels like buoys to the individual that keeps them afloat, that keeps them feeling safe and free from anxiety. Some more insights into boundaries. The goal is to be the authority. We need to do this. not authoritarian. Do it because I said so. Because authoritarian styles cause behavior problems by inherently removing control from the individual and activating oppositional thinking and behaviors in the individual with the syndrome. Providers must be experienced as the fair authority so that adults in your care can feel safe and supported. So you're going to want to define and uphold your boundaries with gentle but firm authority and empathy. You're going to stick to and state your boundaries regarding time limits, rules, routines, permissible language and behavior, everything. So for instance, if the individual says, I want sugar in my coffee, you might respond with, I know you like sugar. I know we don't use sugar in coffee though. Individual says, but I want sugar in my coffee. Again, you'll come back with firm boundaries. I know you like sugar. We don't use sugar in our coffee though. You're going to go back and forth with this at the most 3 times. And then at the end, you're going to give the individual the option by saying, you know what, honey, you don't have to have coffee today. That's okay. You're still giving them now the choice to have coffee or not have coffee. And we'll see how important choices are. Don't repeat your requests again more than 3 times. At your 3rd request, you're going to physically and calmly, begin to intervene. You're going to slowly walk toward the individual while calmly stating, it looks like you need help to turn off the TV. Say what you mean and mean what you say. So don't promise anything you don't intend to follow through on. You must be the reliable authority. Don't lie in an attempt to get out of a situation or avoid a situation, especially if your deceit could be discovered. So example, if you're eating something, and lots of people with the syndrome have great hearing, will hear you unwrapping something from a mile away, you're not going to say, no, I'm not eating, if they're asking you, are you eating? You've got to be perceived as honest and reliable. So instead, you might say something like, yep, is that bothering you? Don't threaten to remove a privilege, because removing privileges or taking something away generally does not teach cooperation. Instead, it leads to increased behavior problems. So if you ever do remove a privilege, make sure that you're immediately giving the opportunity to earn the privilege right back with their following through with what you've asked them to do. And don't allow yourself to be manipulated. This is a boundary you've got to keep very firm. When the individual believes they have manipulated you or can manipulate you, they no longer feel safe, their anxiety increases, and the potential for a behavior problem increases. Doctors Forster and Gurash use the day stops here. We kind of talked about it a little bit. When you've got a refusal behavior like a tantrum or a sit down strike, you're really going to stop where you are right there. You're going to progress through the day's schedule when the current task is finished, or it's at least begun or partially finished. And then you proceed through the rest of your day. Environmental basic C is calm responses. Anxiety is significantly increased in persons with the syndrome by raised, critical, or accusatory or angry sounding voices. So always speak calmly, no matter how you feel on the inside, especially during emotionally charged exchanges, No matter how upset the individual with PWS is, a calmer response from you reduces their anxiety and potential for increased behavior problem. So use self-calming strategies to reduce your reactivity. And the best one I know is to breathe in the moment. Do listen to the individual who says, leave me alone. Don't say anything else. Don't look directly at them anymore. Keep them in your peripheral vision and don't stand too close because they really may be giving you a very clear indication that they cannot manage or control their body anymore. And I've stood too close to someone without leaving them alone and listening and been clobbered. So don't do that. Persons with PWS typically like drama. Not all, but many people like drama. And some people, not all, like to stir the pot. They like to stir up trouble here between a couple of people, and then they stand back and they watch the drama unfold. Don't engage in that. So supervise and monitor for drama and gossip, and intervene very gently when you need to. Respond to a tantrum or unwanted behavior with kind of indifference and boredom. Ignore unwanted behaviors while monitoring for safety to extinguish them as quickly as possible. And remember that lying to avoid blame or gain an audience and confabulation or making up stories are pretty common symptoms of PWS. Don't give in to a tantrum. If you give in to a tantrum today, you've just taught the individual that all they need to do is to yell louder, be a bit more aggressive, wait you out longer, and eventually you'll give in to give them what they're asking for. So giving in today over a little thing will likely lead to larger tantrum tomorrow. So the peacefulness and overall quality of life of everyone in the household or the workplace depends upon establishing those limits and boundaries. So think long-term and don't give in to a tantrum. So a couple of samples of how not to give into a tantrum. You can take out your phone and read, keeping the individual in your peripheral vision. If they're having a sit-down strike or kind of just don't engage with the individual once they're in tantrum mode. A physician's note that was developed by Prader-Willi California Foundation and is available free on their website. I don't know if it's on PWSA's yet. The physician's note and symptom treatment checklist can help document the need for food security, supervision supports, etc., in every setting, including those individual service plans, residential services, so plans, day program plans, volunteer sites, community outings. So utilize this, this tool. It can be quite helpful to you. Intervention number 2, empathy as an intervention. Empathy is a powerful and critical intervention when it comes to people with Prader-Willi syndrome. Empathy is the ability to see from another's perspective, to understand and share another's feelings. Most people with PWS do not possess the ability to see things from the other's perspective. So we have to see things from their perspective in order to know how to manage interactions. Empathy is neither agreeing nor disagreeing, and it's definitely not giving in. It is simply communicating that you understand the perspective, the want, the need, or the concern of the individual. When somebody feels listened to and understood, they typically don't need to turn up the volume to escalate their upset. So get into the mindset of the individual. What's it look like from their perspective? Understand their concern from their perspective. Don't be afraid to highlight how awful it must be to the individual. Using things like, that's just awful. Oh, I'm just so sorry. This must feel terrible. This is terrible. Will not make it worse. Genuine empathy does not make things worse for the individual who's so sad or upset or disappointed about something. Having genuine empathy about how awful something is will help put you on level playing ground with them so they understand, you do understand and get it. Because once this understanding is achieved and communicated, there's less need for the individual to work harder to get louder or more aggressive to get you to understand them. And only after you're certain that the individual knows you completely understand their concern should you begin to express your concern. Let me repeat that. Only after you're certain the individual knows that you completely understand their concern, which means their behavior is reducing, their upsetness is reducing, then you can begin to share your concern. Empathy is a critical and fundamental intervention to reduce anxiety, disappointment, and frustration. And it may be one of the only healthy interventions that can stop an escalating behavior in its tracks. few tips on empathy. Don't try to talk somebody out of their upset. They're just going to feel they need to express more upset so that you understand. So if you offer comfort and it doesn't reduce their disappointment or upset or escalating upset, go immediately to empathy. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. This is terrible. Don't use logic and reasoning, especially when the person is upset or stuck on an idea or a position. Just give up thinking of those brilliant ways to convince the individual that it's okay, that you're right. All they hear is you telling them they're wrong, which will increase their upset. Use empathy. Don't engage in a power struggle. When to disengage, because disagreements can often be ended if you allow the individual with PWS to have the last word. I'll say one more thing, and then you can say one more thing, and then let's talk about something else. And then literally don't say another word. Don't argue. You can't win. You're constrained by logic and reasoning, and the individual with PWS is not. Use empathy. Just continue to use empathy. Distraction after empathy can be effective. I know, honey, it's really disappointing that we're not able to go outside today. It's just terrible that we can't go outside, and we planned on going outside and this darn rain came. Oh my gosh, did you just see what just happened over there? After empathy, distraction might be helpful. Words and phrases that express empathy might include, at their basic form, just repeating what the individual has said. Other things might include, you think X, you think X, and I understand you think X. Yep, I understand you think X. I get it. You think you would like X, Y, Z. I understand. You get X. What a bummer. What a bummer. What a disappointment. That's not fair. You can say right, pardon me, you can get right to the heart of things by you cutting in with saying something like, that's not fair. You're absolutely right. That is not fair. And what a disappointment. And that's not fair. It sounds like you think X. It's interesting. You think X, I think Y. These are all empathetic responses. Paint the picture. Intervention number 3. Knowing what to expect reduces anxiety and reduces the potential for an unwanted behavior. So paint the picture before entering any situation. Explain in detail what will happen, what things will look like, what your expectations are, what will happen if there's any kind of behavior. This isn't meant to be, again, punitive. This is meant to reduce the anxiety of the individual so they know everything to expect. From the time we get into the car, to the time we pull up to the, let's say, restaurant, to the time we all sit down, we're going to wait for the waiter or the person to sit us. Everything is painted out for them so they know everything to expect. Paint the picture, especially for community outings, shopping excursions, restaurant visits, changes in the schedule, home visits, changes in staff or residents. Everything, even if you've been somewhere 100 times, paint the picture again about what the individual can expect to happen. Do bear in mind, though, that giving too much advance notice creates anxiety for some people, and not giving enough advance notice creates anxiety for others. So finding that sweet spot for timing with the adults that are in your care is critical, though it's not always easy. Anticipate that what you do or what happens this time will be expected to occur next time. Pardon me. And that disappointment will result if that doesn't occur, if it's not fixed first. Which leads us to intervention number 4. Fix that past goof. Anything that has occurred in the past is expected to occur in the future. If something that occurred in the past needs a change, it's important to provide advance notice for that change and what that change will look like. Fix a past goof and paint a new picture to create appropriate and future expectations. And how do we do that? Just kind of follow some guidelines here. Bring up the issue that needs fixing first. Hey, remember last time when? Incorporate empathy. Remind the individual how wonderful or how bad it was for that individual last time. Hey, remember last time when? Preface the fix with reminding the individual of the benefit to them. Hey, we always want to do what's best for you because we care about you a lot. And introduce the fix. This time we're going to do ABC instead of XYZ because that's going to be much better for you. So an example of this might look something like, let's say you're a new staff. And at your first group outing to the mall, you wanted to make a great first impression. So you let everyone order a chocolate-covered banana on a stick because bananas are healthy. You know now that the individuals in your care should not have received a chocolate-covered banana on that outing. How do you fix this past goof? It might sound something like this. Remember last time we went to the mall and I let y'all have a chocolate-covered banana? It was delicious, wasn't it? It must have been a bit of a surprise that I let you guys have that. And I now know I goofed. I goofed because now I know chocolate-covered bananas really aren't healthy. And I always want to do what's best for you guys because I care about you a whole lot. So this time when we go to the mall, we won't get a chocolate-covered banana on a stick. We will get something else great though. You get to choose whether you want a strawberry yogurt cup or a blueberry yogurt cup. Intervention number 5, creating that win-win preferred choices. PWS causes oppositionalism. The brain's automatic reaction is typically to respond with no. And this looks like oppositional, defiant, and argumentative behavior. So avoid yes/no questions. Offer win-win or preferred choices to reduce oppositionalism and improve cooperation. Make everything the preferred, the individual's choice within the preferred win-win choices that you present them. And you're going to be giving them the experience of control, but not too much control. Do you want to wear the red jacket or the blue jacket? You want to carry your jacket or wear it? Are you going to clean up now or at the next commercial? Do you want to do just dance or a freeze dance? Do you want to take your shower now or in 5 minutes or 7 minutes? Avoid open-ended questions because these can be difficult to process and create anxiety. So for instance, what do you want for breakfast is an open-ended question. And it really does give the impression that whatever they want is an option. Do you want Cheerios or Total for breakfast? Is a preferred choice option. Avoid ambiguity. We'll see, maybe later, are vague and they may create anxiety. And so if you don't know something, just kind of say, I don't know, honey, I don't know. I'll let you know as soon as I find out. Avoid hurrying with your words. Instead of saying, hurry up, let's go, let's go. Instead, use music and games to motivate or hurry. My son is actually 22 years old right now. And when he was little, we instituted do after I said, Mom goofed, I totally goofed, we've got to hurry, do. And that even now will get his brain activated and laughing and silly, and he's more prone to moving a little more quickly. But do allow lots of time to process past the brain's oppositionalism and build in extra time wherever you go. Preferred choices can help manage obsessive compulsive tendencies as well. The brain functions or believes if 1 is good, 100 is better, right? And many people with PWS have obsessive tendencies, obsessive compulsive tendencies. So they may collect or even hoard items, or they may do lots of sorting or pulling or tearing, or even stealing can be an obsessive compulsive behavior, and skin picking can certainly be an obsessive compulsive behavior. These are all associated with the brain's neurology. So if the obsessive thoughts or compulsive behaviors don't interfere with the flow of the day or anybody else, ignore them. If they're not hurting anybody, they're not hurting anything, ignore it. If they are interfering with the flow of the day or hurting somebody, then you want to offer these preferred choices and lots of empathy to help manage some of this excessive collecting or hoarding. This doesn't go to skin picking. This just goes to other obsessive compulsive tendencies. So you might say something like, I know today is the day everybody gets to bring something to day program to share. And I absolutely agree that all 150 of your rocks are awesome. Would you like to take 3 rocks or 5 rocks to your day program? With pushback, because you're going to get it, I totally get it that you want to take all of them. Come back to empathy. All of them are awesome. I totally get it. You may stay with this for such a long, long time. They're all so special. Then come back to your preferred choices. Would you like 3 or 5 rocks? If the individual is getting upset, then you're going to go directly to empathy. I understand, honey. This is so disappointing because you really want to take all 150 of your rocks and they're all so special. I know. And then come back to your preferred choices. Do you want 3 rocks or 5 rocks? And you just stay there with the individual. If the individual has a history of stealing coveted items from the community, then you may wish to introduce the diagnosis to everyone in that store, especially store managers. And you may want to introduce, as a matter of form, the syndrome and some of your residents or day program individuals to the local police department with your releases of info. Medication may be necessary for some individuals, especially with obsessive compulsive skin picking issues, although it is not guaranteed that medication interventions will reduce or eliminate the symptom. This is a toughie. Intervention number 6, disguise those no's. Anything that looks, sounds, or smells like a frustrator could lead to a behavior problem. The word no is a frustrator, and the word but is a frustrator. So use no and but sparingly and disguise them whenever you can. And this might sound something like the individual says, I want to go outside. Instead of saying, nope, we can't go outside now, we will instead say, me too. It looks really fun out there. As soon as we get our stuff done in here, then we'll get to go outside. So we've never said no. However, the individual knows, pardon me, we're not going out now, we'll go out later. Use empathy. Empathy is your best friend. Be gently and compassionately unswerving, though. Use that broken record technique. Yes, as soon as we get our stuff done, let's go outside. I know you want to go outside now. I know, it's so fun out there. As soon as we get our stuff done, let's go outside. And your empathy and your broken record technique can go on and on. Schedule non-preferred tasks and activities before preferred tasks and activities. For example, lunch is after the workout. And keep the individual thinking rather than spiraling down deeper into a disappointing or a negative feeling. So you might, as you're giving empathy, then follow up with bringing them back up to thinking mode. So what do you think we could do about that? So what options do you think we might have? Do you think we could do X or Y? Do you think those are options? We want to bring the individual up to thinking. We don't want to problem solve for, pardon me, we don't want to problem solve for the individual, because no matter what brilliant solution you have, oppositional brain is going to kick it back. So you want to get the individual thinking about their own potential solutions and maybe even kind of laying down the seeds for giving them 1 or 2 options to consider about what potential solutions there could be. Intervention number 7, allow for the possibility of rightness. Most people with the syndrome have a strong need to be right at all times and at all costs. Disagreements can quickly turn into power struggles that have a life or death feel to them, because being wrong to the person with Prader-Willi syndrome often feels deathly intolerable. So we want to allow for the possibility of rightness to avoid power struggle arguments. So things like, you might be right. Interesting thought. I never thought of that. I like how you think. Isn't that interesting? You think X and I think Y. Huh. So you think X and I think Y. I wonder why. These are all very, very powerful interventions to help the individual experience their rightness without getting into a power struggle and without you telling them they're wrong, you're right. Let me come back. And the irony of this is that when you allow for the possibility of rightness for them, they actually can their brain can be flexible to look at other potential options. Anticipate that denying guilt or lying to get out of trouble is going to happen. Remember, so acknowledge simply or ignore self-defending statements. If the individual says, "Don't blame me," you can just let them know, "I heard you. I heard you." Instead of getting into a power struggle with, "I'm not blaming you." Now, yes, you are. No, I'm not. I heard you. Many people with the syndrome believe they should already know something not yet learned. So their response to you may be to argue about it or fake it. So teach as if they already know what you're going to be teaching. So that might sound something like, you know how to hang up your coat, right? You put one shoulder in on one side of the hanger, and then you lift up the other side of the shoulder, and then you put it on the other side of the hanger. So you teach as if they already know it. And role model that it's okay to make a mistake. I famously walk around our PWS camp talking about how I goofed. I goofed. And it can be pretty fun when a few days later, you will hear somebody with the syndrome who never before might have said it, that they goofed. Intervention number 8, use their egocentrism to your advantage. PWS neurochemistry typically interferes with the ability to see things from another person's perspective, which can look an awful lot like self-centeredness and egocentrism. People with PWS generally think about themselves first and foremost. So, pardon me, use PWS's egocentrism as a strategy to increase cooperation. So don't say, if we hurry, housemate Johnny will be, if we don't hurry, housemate Johnny will be late to his appointment, because the individual with the syndrome may love Johnny to death, but do they really care that he's late to his appointment? No. However, if we say, if we get Johnny to his appointment on time, then we'll have time to watch our movie. Now the individual is invested and motivated to get Johnny to his appointment on time. Don't say you're yelling, it's disturbing other residents or at the workplace, but do say, I hear that you want XYZ. When you speak more softly and calm your body, we can talk about how to get what you want. Teach others' perspective. Teach the other's perspective. I like to use television and television shows and even commercials and that pause button to teach some of these things. What do you think they were thinking? Why do you think they meant by that? What do you think that's what's going on here? These can be powerful learning opportunities for individuals. And do remember to teach on purpose versus on accident, because that's a really tough concept for many people with the syndrome to understand. If something is done, they think it was done purposely to them. And we have to teach that accidents do happen and it wasn't necessarily to them. Utilize egocentric thinking to your advantage. might sound something like, you know, now that you're 26 years old, I wonder if you're mature enough to start sorting your own laundry. I don't know. I'm not sure though. Do you think you're mature enough? I don't know. Do you think that now you've piqued the individual's interest, and of course they want to be experienced as mature enough, and that may be your lead into helping them learn a new task or a skill. Intervention number 9, motivate externally. Most persons with PWS typically have very low internal motivation. So we want to motivate externally using verbal praise, encouragement, high fives, special time earned with somebody, earning privileges to be a special helper. And of course, those token rewards, stickers, collectibles, or reward system is very helpful too. Participate alongside the individual. Don't just, you know, okay, it's time for activity, go exercise on your exercise machine. Really stand there with them. And if you can walk with them, if there's another exercise equipment, do it with them next to the individual. Lead like a mama duck is a wonderful intervention I learned from Catherine Crawford, who used to work with me, where she says, you know, like a mama duck, she doesn't wait for her babies. She just goes and she kind of knows her babies are going to follow her. So utilize some of that principle with the individuals you're working with, because most people are going to be pretty sedentary until they really need to move. So you're going to be saying, okay, it's 5 minutes till we go, 3 minutes till we go. Okay, time to go. And you're going to physically get your body up and going, and then moving your body to so that it's pulling the residents or your employees to be following you. Do not use food as a motivator, incentive, reward, or a punishment. We don't use food externally to motivate. Food is as stable as oxygen and air. Remember that executive functioning deficits are very common. So individuals will need support throughout the lifetime with planning, prioritizing, organizing, problem solving, self-monitoring, self-regulating, paying attention, beginning tasks, multitasking, meeting deadlines, time management, and short-term memory. Remember that common sense and judgment are almost always impaired, if not always. Guide the individual to conclusions again, rather than problem solving for them. This is an opportunity to maximize whatever problem solving potential the individual does have. Remain vigilant for delusional grandiosity, which is a term that was kind of taught by Janice Forster to monitor for safety. An example of delusional grandiosity might sound like when my son was younger, he would tell everybody he was a great swimmer. He was a fantastic swimmer. He learned to swim so fast. In reality, he was a terrible swimmer. He would sink to the bottom of a pool. And if he had been believed by individuals who were caring for him that he was a great swimmer, as he so convincingly told people that he was, his life could have been in danger. So we always want to monitor for safety until we know the individual. And our final intervention, number 10, use transition prompts to increase flexibility. Many people with PWS have attentional deficits. At the same time, they often exhibit hyper-focus on what they're doing in the moment, which makes it difficult to move to the next activity. So this looks like extreme difficulty stopping a task or transitioning to the next event or activity, even if the next activity or event is a preferred one. So common challenges include not stopping writing, torn paper from continuous erasures, and things of this nature. So we want to use transition prompts to help the brain prepare to move to the next task or activity. All right, we're moving on to the next activity in 5 minutes. Start finishing up what you're working on. Okay, guys, 3 minutes until we need to stop. Start putting your stuff away. All right, 1 minute, here we go. Use those preferred and win-win choices. Pardon me. So do you want to start getting ready or stopping to get ready in 3 minutes or 5 minutes? Use preferred choices. Provide lots of empathy. I know it's really hard to stop and you don't want to stop. I know you really want to keep working on this. Do you want to stop in 3 minutes or 5 minutes? Do you want to set the timer or do you want me to set the timer? Do you want to use my phone timer or do you want to use the hourglass timer? Do you want to use the time timer or the kitchen timer? Everything is a choice and preferred choices to empower and get greater cooperation. Remember, as the professional provider, you are absolutely critical to the health, safety, and overall quality of life of the persons with PWS in your care. Bear in mind, though, that everyone has a bad day now and again, including people with Prader-Willi syndrome, and that even the most brilliantly managed interventions won't be successful all of the time. That's just PWS, and actually that's just life. But when you incorporate the strategies you've learned today, you will create an environment that inspires greater overall cooperation, increased fun amongst your residents and staff, and reduce stress for everyone. So I just want to say there's no conflicts here. And a special thanks to all of the professionals, the individuals with the syndrome and the families from whom I've learned for over decades now, a couple of decades, and continue to share their experiences. And now I wanted to leave plenty of time for questions because there generally are. And so now anybody who wants to unmute yourself and ask a question, or maybe some of the moderators can help in that way. I'm ready for questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lisa. That was amazing. Just a reminder, you can write your questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand, or you can electronically raise your hand. So we'll give people a few minutes.
Would it help if I stop my share and then we can see everybody a little better?
That'd be great. And just a reminder, everything that you saw here just now and some additional handouts are available to you in the hub.
Chelsea.
Gail.
Oh.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Britt.
Gail can go ahead, and then Chelsea, I saw your hand up too. Chelsea Crow.
Can you unmute? Oh,
I got it down. Okay. I know, very, very interesting. I have applied a lot of that, and it's so helpful. I love the reminders, for one thing. That was really good for me. But it was something you said at the end, I just found, at the beginning, I found so interesting because I thought it was just my son. Is that common that they have this acute hearing thing?
yeah, it seems to be.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I didn't realize that was one of them because we recognize that. I mean, the hearing is amazing to me. So that is a common thing.
Yes. And when you think about it, when we talked in the very beginning, the brain functions as if it's in, oh, maybe I didn't talk about it in here, as it's in primitive brain mode, right? It's in starvation mode. So that all the senses seem to be acutely looking for, hearing for, smelling for food, right? So it might make sense if we think about it in that way.
Yes. Yeah.
But very common.
Thank you.
Chelsea.
Okay.
I think we have to ask to unmute first before you're able to do it. So
Yeah, we can't unmute ourselves.
yeah, I see that now.
We have to be contained. So so I just wanted to share a little something, you know, I had a student that got really he's getting ready to transition soon, and his anxiety is extremely high, and his phone calls with his parents have been getting out of hand. And he and I had a discussion about this last week, and my frustration level was very high. And you know, he was, you know, he's like, well, you're a bitch for adding in my plan that staff needs to dial the phone for me, you know, like he was extremely frustrated about that. And I was not happy with being called a bitch, but mind you, like, I've almost been at Latham for 3 years, so there was nothing there that was, you know, completely out of line. But I did, I was just having a day, you know, and he was having a moment. So it wasn't a great combo, but I did say, when I saw him yesterday, I said, listen, I just want to apologize for my frustration, because, you know, it wasn't okay for me to get that frustrated. I don't appreciate being called a name, but I know how you're feeling. And so I just, you know, I know, I think we all must have these days here and there, but I just felt, and I don't even know, he didn't seem too interested in the apology anyway, but it just was something that I felt was really important to say. So I just wanted to share that, because I think all of these things that you laid out, it can just be so hard. Like you said, we're ruled by logic and reasoning and such, and it can be so hard not to just, for us to get stuck there.
Yes.
So.
Yes. That was a nice illustration of, we all have bad days. And when we're super frustrated ourselves with something, it's really, 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 really hard to stay calm, isn't it? It's like impossible to stay calm. And yet we expect people with Prader-Willi syndrome, who are so frustrated, to stay calm.
Yeah.
Right? Gives you a lot of insight into what people are experiencing. So breathing ourselves, when we take 3 deep breaths in, it actually changes our neurochemistry, and it the brain releases some nice calming endorphins and molecules. Yeah. So modeling that, not only for ourselves, doing it for ourselves, but modeling it for our residents and our people we're working with, can be very, very helpful. Some people with the syndrome will hold an "I'm sorry" over your head for the rest of your life. So you really have to know the person that you're apologizing to.
Uh-oh.
Yes. No, that's he was more involved with himself. So you just have to be a little mindful of that. But I love that I goofed. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done. I you know, my bad. I'm sorry. Yeah. Wonderful.
Thanks.
Thank you. So Miles, you're up next. And just a reminder, if you do have a question, if you can send it to everyone in the chat so that we can read those out loud, that will be super helpful. But Miles, Kelly, you are up next.
Hi, I'm calling in from the UK. Thanks for that. That was incredibly enlightening. I work for an organisation that supports 89 adults across lots of services. And so the age range is somewhere between 18, 19 into people in their late 50s. Can these techniques apply across the age range?
Across the board. You can give stickers as a nice praise reward to some individuals who are 60, and they will be enjoyed and cherished and oohed and awed over, just like they were when you gave them to somebody, or when you gave them to that same individual when they were 10.
Yeah, I mean, and also, sorry, go on.
Not every reward system or rewarding piece is across the board. Some people will like stickers and some people won't. Some people who are 10 won't like stickers, and people who are 60 will. And that some people might like stickers for a while, and then stickers are blah, doesn't reward me anymore, doesn't motivate me anymore.
Yeah. And is there any the received wisdom a few years ago used to be that anecdotally, as people age, the behaviors lessen, they tend to mellow. Is there any is that your experience, any research to back that up?
Yes, I know there's some research on that. I personally, professionally, I don't see that. I don't. Okay. it may be, and I don't see a reduction in hyperphagia either. I think that what we might see is that as people, this is my personal opinion and my professional experience, right? It may be that what we're seeing is people who are feeling lower anxiety in settings that they're very comfortable in. They've got their nice routines and schedules down, so their anxiety isn't high, so their behaviors are far better managed, and their food is much better secured. They know all about their food acquisition and all the routines and the people in their lives, so that their behavior reflects that increased security.
Well, that's great. Thank you for that.
I think so. I'll add to that. If you take the same person that you think their behavior is great, their food seeking is under control, you put them in another environment where they're not as well managed, I think you're going to see a resurgence of anxiety. And anytime there's anxiety, there's an increase for potential behavior problems.
Excellent. Thanks again.
Great. Next up, we have April.
April, can somebody
Hi.
find?
I just put my question in the chat box and I feel inept at Zoom. I'm sorry. It's been a year and a half and I still.
Well, me too, April, and it's been longer than that, but.
So I'll just read my question. My child is 7 and she splits her time between households, her father and mine. And we do have a good co-parenting relationship as far as that goes, but we don't see eye to eye on behavior management. No surprise, I'm sure. A lot of times he's concerned about if we don't try to correct the behavior, that we're going to teach her that she's getting away with inappropriate behavior. And this usually comes in when it comes down to things like hitting and screaming. I have sort of found myself teetering, wondering if he's right. And maybe it's not a matter of being right and wrong. I don't mean to sound like I want to win an argument. Is the trying to distract and move on from what's happening going to inadvertently teach her that it's okay to scream and hit? This happened yesterday, actually, with her stepdad. And I just wasn't sure how to handle it. I ended up ignoring it.
This is a great question. I think that you have to teach it. You have to teach screaming is not okay. Screaming will not get you what you want. You have to control your body. Hitting will not get you what you want. I think you have to be very specific in teaching it, and then teach what her behavior is saying is, I'm frustrated, I'm mad. Teach those words, and that you have to teach specifically how to express what she wants and what she needs in very direct and clear ways without yelling and without hitting. So yes, I think you do have to teach it, so that when you say, what's your daughter's name? Oh, I'm sorry, I asked a question.
No, I muted myself to try and limit the background noise. Her name is Jody.
Okay, Jody, you know what, sweetie? I know that you're frustrated. Yelling is not okay. Take a big, deep breath. Tell mom what you want, okay? And keep continuing to do that. Hitting is not okay, Jody. Hitting is not okay. So when you control your body, then I will pay attention to you. And then you look away and you engage somewhere else, and you can model. Jody, when you say, Mommy, I need your help, then I will help you. And then look away and do something, so that you little bits and pieces. So distraction after you're doing an intervention to stop that behavior is beautiful, but you've got to specifically teach it. Most kids who don't, most typically developing kids learn from other people or their experiences. This doesn't get me what I want. But kids with Prader-Willi syndrome don't make those connections. So you have to specifically teach it, I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to move to just a chat question in hopes that we can get to most of our questions here. This one came in from Devin Gregg. I have an individual that I have been working with for a little over a year, and I think all of the practices are great. How would I transition from what I have been doing now to the practices shown? And Devin, I'm just going to unmute you.
Try to find, okay. So when you're introducing a new anything, you're going to be prefacing, right? Painting the picture, right? Prefacing what it is you're going to be teaching. Hey guys, we went to a conference and use that egocentrism to your advantage to learn how you guys can get more of what you need. Isn't that great? We went to a conference to learn more about how you guys can get more of what you wanted around here. And here's what we learned. So, and then you start kind of one at a time talking about some of the practices that you've learned, or just teaching what, laying out a few, and then talking about each of them individually. I'm not sure if you want to role play a tiny bit of it, or if that answers your question.
I think that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, great.
All right, next we have Krista Gilbert.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, I was just putting my question in the chat. My son is 18. He just graduated from high school. He was able to graduate with a regular ed diploma and on time. All his friends are going off to college.
Congratulations.
Thank you. All of his friends are going off to college. He wants to go to school, but mother, is afraid of allowing him to go somewhere without them knowing. The people in school knew his condition, but now I'm seeing a lot of anxiety because he don't know what he wants to do, and I'm at a loss. I really don't know what to do either.
I don't blame you for being at a loss, because when we graduate from high school, all school supports stop and put. You're done.
Right.
My son also graduated from high school and applied to, and so many individuals with the syndrome can go to junior college, right? My son's going to university, and there are no supports unless your state has provisions for that, for aid support, one-to-one direct aid support to get him to school, to walk him to his classes, to get him home from school so that he doesn't access food. If you put somebody with Prader-Willi syndrome in any setting without one-to-one direct supervision, you're in for a world of hurt. So that whatever options you can get from your state for supervision, then you employ that. Some families get really, really creative in how they get that support to the individual so that their loved one can attend college. Or attend university. So examples of that include everything from some parents are the one-to-one aid support, taking their child to school, sitting in classes or right outside classes, walking them to next classes, taking them home. Some parents have hired, some states provide that service. Some parents hire other university students to be that aid support, to take them to class and back, or to provide that supervision. So thinking outside the box, but making sure that you have one-to-one supervision is critical. I've just seen far too many individuals with the syndrome who became morbidly obese, and behaviors significantly were made worse in all areas because they were dropped off at school, or they even took a public bus to school, and then were left to roam the campus by themselves. I love school. My son is just finishing his bachelor's, and he wants to get a master's. I'm telling you, I will pay for 17 masters, because school is, with that direct support, provides the structure, routine, boundaries in a very social setting.
Exactly. But I'm in Georgia, and I don't think if we do have it, I don't know where to go.
Call your Georgia Association. Call your Department of Developmental Services, Georgia's, whatever that is. Ask those questions. get Georgia Association, PWS to help. At the very least, there are online classes that
Yes,
can
ma'am.
provide some structure and some sense of how proud he is in advancing his education if he's so inclined.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next is from Tyler in the chat. Any suggestions on how to use these techniques when there's more than one person with PWS, twins, for example, getting them to transition when they both have different ideas?
That's why school settings and residential settings with more than one person with the syndrome can be so challenging. How old are the twins? You said
They're 29. Actually, I'm Shelly. Tyler's name got put up here because Tyler's the one who always does Zoom for his day program. So I'm Shelly and my boys are 29.
okay. Are they competitive with each other?
Yes. Yeah.
There we go. Hey, I can see you. When you compete with them to do something, does it help them? When you say, oh, who can finish this first? Does that motivate them?
Oh, yes. Well, we have 2 vacuum cleaners in our house because they both have to vacuum at the same time, or they have their own set of chores. But I think it's more of a, like when we're kind of like setting the buzzers, and we do set a lot of timers in the house, or transitions. But if I were to give them the option of transitioning and one says, oh, well, I want to do it in 3 minutes and one wants to do it in 5 minutes, that kind of, or when we're trying to get ready to leave to get someplace is a huge challenge.
Wonder what would happen if you said, okay, you guys, I don't know. This is a little special deal, right? So at the very least, and I'll say to everybody, if you want to email me privately, we can talk about some stuff. But maybe it's, all right, you guys huddle up. You agree together. Do you want 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever your preferred choices are? Huddle up and agree. When they agree, great. When they don't agree, go with the agree first and then do a plan B for when they don't agree. It may be, I don't know if there's anybody else in your house that can help, divide some of that up for you. But you got your hands full.
They're actually both standing on either side of
I
me
see
right
one.
now. So, well, like for example, they go to their sister's house every Wednesday night and they get out to eat. So they usually get to pick what they want, but they cannot agree. And so she's like,
so
why
I'm
does
going
it
to say,
always have to be difficult? Why do they?
I know. Well, there may be purpose to that. So I would say, you know what, email me privately and let's tackle that. I'm happy to tackle, some brainstorming things with you. And let's see what we can do to be helpful.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
I just know we're out of time. So
yes.
Isn't that a bummer?
I know. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And Lisa, thank you so much.